This is the Backlot 605 podcast, and it is now time for another interview from the Backlot. Welcome to the Backlot 605 podcast. I am your host. I am Casey Calderman. Join with me today for this special episode is my co-host, Sam Lenz, the co-host of the Slashlot 605 podcast. Sam, how are you today?
Doing great, Casey. Happy to be here.
Hey, I'm very excited to have you on because today, Sam, we have a very, very special guest on this show. She is the star, the horror icon behind 10 Minutes to Midnight, returning to the DJ seat behind the microphone for the first time since playing her iconic role as Stretch in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome Caroline Williams to the show. Caroline, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good.
We are excited to have you.
Yes. And that's kind of, so I had to bring up Stretch right away here in the beginning of the show because as far as your career and for this movie, it is almost impossible to not bring up that character because when we jump into 10 Minutes to Midnight, again, you're playing another DJ in this movie. A brief synopsis is you are playing a DJ on her final day at the job who is then bitten by a rabid bat, thus turning yourself into what is presumed to be a vampire, and then you terrorize your co-workers on your last day at work. So obviously we have to bring up your role as Stretch. So one thing I do have to ask with this feels like a very personal movie to you. Was this something that was written with you in mind? Or was this something you read and said, this is me in this character, I need to be a part of this movie?
No, actually, it was, it was an unusual confluence of events. The Bloomquist brothers wrote the script from an idea by Carson Bloomquist, and they just developed it and expanded it and created it. Their first offer actually went to Barbara Crampton, but Barbara was going to be producing Castle Freak in Europe, and she wasn't going to be able to do it. And the two of us, Barbara and I, had seen one another recently. We'd gotten together with a lot of women in horror at a cool bar, hanging out and talking. And she told Erik, I just saw Caroline. You really should offer this to her. This reads like it was made for her. And I watched Long Lost, which was one of his first films, and it starred Nicholas Tucci and Adam Wepler, who are both in 10 Minutes. And I was deeply impressed with that feature and every single thing about it. Catherine Corcoran's in it as well. And I thought, you know what, these guys have their game together. I want to work with them. And within 2 minutes of being on the phone with them, we had struck a deal and we were working on wardrobe.
That's awesome. That's so cool. This movie is something else. Like, this is I'm a huge vampire movie fan. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Lost Boys. And so when I heard you were in a vampire movie, I was really excited to check it out. And this movie caught me by surprise. It is one of the trippiest, most surreal vampire movies I have ever seen.
That's what people say.
Yeah, it goes to some really unexpected places, which I really liked.
Yeah.
And it is funny that it's you're coming back to the DJ booth with this, but I never got any kind of impression that you were trying to reimagine Stretch or even come back to Stretch at all. Like, Amy Marlowe is such a different character. Not only is she in a different place in her life, but just the way you play these two characters could not be more different. And how did you find those two distinct personalities? Like, was there any sort of prep or any conscious decisions you made to make sure that you weren't repeating yourself, because it's a wonderful performance, and it does some awesome things. You do some awesome things within this movie.
That is directly attributable to Erik Bloomquist as a director. Because when we first talked about it, I said the danger zone here is falling into Caroline Williamsisms, falling into Stretchisms, falling into Toby Hooperisms. I said we really have to. I don't want to go there. I don't want to end up there. And I'd made a lot of changes in my life anyway. Life changes extraordinarily from 1986 to 2019 actually. And I said, I don't want any of that to show. I've made a lot of changes in my look. I have to not do anything that I did in the other film. And Erik is the kind of director. He really took care of me. He was right by the lines all the time. He was talking to me throughout. We talked in depth about everything, every element of her psychology, every element of her life. And Carson had all of that. He's the writer. And she basically was his creation. And, so it was an incredible luxury to unpack all of that with the two of them guiding me throughout. It was like walking on a tightrope across Niagara Falls, which is okay. It's an exaggeration, but any actor would know what I mean. If you want to avoid anything that the audience identifies you with, and that's a powerful thing. The audience shows up to see that in some ways. I mean, people love Stretch and they love TCM2, and a lot of people are going to be kind of put off by, oh, gee, there's no Stretch here. But it's really got to be that way if you want the movie to be a different experience. And it's directly attributable to Erik Bloomquist's direction and Carson's writing. And the fact that Carson spent lots of time with me. If we were in between shots and I wasn't in something, and I'm in nearly every shot in the film, Carson took the time to run lines with me, to talk about what's the reference point she's making here. I mean, it was super in depth, and I could not have had better care from those guys.
That's awesome.
That's one thing that absolutely stood out is Erik's directing in this is incredible. And I mean, he's kind of doing very much a tonal balance here, because this is a character drama first and foremost. I think it's obviously it's marketed like a vampire flick, which it also is, but it is first and foremost a character drama with a lot of heart and a lot of care for its characters, as well as humor sprinkled throughout. What was
a
little
dose of nihilism?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what makes the thing so interesting is you've got people from different backgrounds, experiences. It was truly an ensemble cast, and every character is so extremely well developed, fully fleshed out. You know who they are really quickly. Mm-hmm. You get to know them, and you know who they are very quickly. And, once again, you have to go back to the writing on that. And I think that's why it works as well as it does as a true character play. You've got story and you've got character. I mean, that's got to be the beginning of any movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing with especially your character, this, like I said, it feels very personal to you because your character is going through a transformation literally before our eyes. Yes. One, where she's becoming a vampire. Two, she's ending a career that she was not expecting to end suddenly. This feels like something we have seen many times, especially even in like the horror genres, especially for actors inside that, is the studios feel like they are saying when you're done, even though many times with horror actors, they're saying, no, I'm not done yet. I have a lot left in the tank. I can continue to go. And usually they can. That's usually the case is that. How is that like playing a character that is just thrust into basically retirement, but knows they have a lot left in the tank and a lot left to give?
You know, the thing about the studio system is they will pull the plug on your television show and you won't know about it until you read it in the press. The luxury
Mhm.
of the horror genre is it's still heavily influenced by the indie movement and by young, up and coming, imaginative writers, directors, producers that are not necessarily well known to the studio system. So we have that luxury. We're sort of a self perpetuating genre. The studios may be adopting a lot of horror themes and adopting a lot of horror um, uh, writers and producers and directors into their fold, but you know, Mike Flanagan, I think, is one of the very best examples of that. He may be doing a studio thing, he may be doing a high dollar thing, but the spirit of indie cinema is absolutely a part of everything that he does.
Yeah.
And I think that's very unmistakable. He's us. You know, Neil Marshall, same thing. He's us. And so, you know, there's a proprietary interest there in a way. um, as far as my own life goes, I made big changes in my life about 4 years ago. My children were grown. Like you said, I had a lot left in the tank, or at least I wanted to find out if I did. You know, I'd been mothering and you know, doing that whole thing for 20 years, and you know, with some scattered conventions, and the two projects that truly told me, you know what, you have something to offer, you just have to package yourself differently, as I did Contracted and I did Hatchet 3.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, these are great projects, great acting opportunities. I loved both of them. They were well reviewed, awesome. But I thought, I'm not, I've got to differentiate myself. I've got to find a different, you know, plot of ground to plant and grow. And I thought there aren't too many you know, powerful, sexy, good looking, you know, very independent, very individual women out there at my age. You know, there's a ton of them in their 20s, but what if I took one of those 20 or 30 something girls and just turned her into me? And I thought, fuck, I'm going to do that. And I lost a lot of weight. I got back in shape. I changed my hair. You know, I started getting back into a lot of the music that I loved when I was young, art, um, you know, all kind, just all kinds of things that I had left behind when I was married and being a mother. And I got back in touch with a lot of myself that I had kind of buried, and it was exhilarating. And I think that's where a lot of this came from. You know, I think that's how a lot of the movie launched.
That's awesome. Yeah. We you mentioned getting back into like the music and things that you liked, and
Yes.
you know, this movie, music is such a huge part. Like I was
Oh yeah.
was actually telling Casey after we watched it that I went and downloaded a bunch of Wednesday 13 albums because of the end credits track. I was like, oh, this band is awesome.
Oh yeah.
Did you?
The Condolences album is easily one of the top of the line albums that he's ever put out. I mean, the way it's produced, everything about it. They had Dean Castronova on drums for What the Night Brings, real
Yeah.
powerful sound. And then also the band Bury Your Dead, which was a discovery for all of us because one of the band members uh, was in a relation is in a relationship with our makeup artist. We heard their music on the set and we went, "Oh, dude, we need these guys in our movie." And of
That's
course now,
so dope.
yeah, and Bury Your Dead is all over Spotify, and so I really fell in love with Bury Your Dead, and you know, that was one of the things that I definitely got back in touch with because you know, when I was young and coming up in Texas, there were a lot of metal. You know, Pantera was a metal band, and
Yeah.
you know, Led Zeppelin was big. You can't say they're metal, but they're definite. That's an iconic rock sound.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's the
You know,
heavier side of rock. Yeah.
easily. And um, I'm a Phil Anselmo fan. I love everything he does. And Concrete Blonde was one of my big influences. Danzig, one of my big influences. Misfits,
Yes.
Murder Dolls. Some of the murder. Dead in Hollywood is, one of my absolute favorite songs. I used to wear that one out. So it and when I got my own place and started sort of launching my independent life, I started going back to the whiskey. I started going back to the Viper Room. I started going to a lot of the music venues that I've always loved, and going to the live shows that I've loved. Um, and it just seriously informed the character, the music. And I told Eric and Carson when we were doing the film, I said, you can't have lame-o replica. Oh, here's the guy doing our score. He can imitate this shit. No, 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 no. You've got to have the real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went to Wednesday, who's a very dear friend, and I said, "Can we have can we have songs?" And um, two of the songs, "Death Infinity" and "What the Night Brings" on Condolences were distinctively, they belong to Wednesday, and he said, "You can have these," which is extraordinary because I mean, people are in love with the music as well as the movie. So,
Yeah.
you know,
That's so
yeah.
cool. Did you like play music on set then to get in like certain moods and things, or was it
There wasn't really room for that. We were moving
right?
so quickly. You really can't have a lot of distractions, and everybody's running lines. We're blocking. We had an amazing DP. We were in a
Yeah.
fully operational uh, um, radio station, and
That's so cool.
they would, come to work at 6 a.m. and we would leave, and then they would leave at 6 p.m. and that's when we would go to work. And it was such a weird disembodied experience because so much of radio now is automated. it's
Mm-hmm.
it's basically
Hmm.
bots, and they say their little patter and they play the music, and that goes on all night long. So in various studios throughout the radio station, you could hear the radio station going on. And they had, there in that radio station, you might have 6 substations serving different needs: talk, sports, so you're picking up on all all these vibes. And it was weird because there was nobody there except us. So, nah.
I mean, it feels like a little haunting to think of that. You're in an empty
Yeah.
radio station by yourself, and there's just disembodied music off in the background.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And the thing is you can't really have, you can't. I mean, we managed. We were able to squash to squash. They're in individual little sound
Mm-hmm.
rooms, so you don't hear them when the doors are closed. But when you go to, I mean, you can hear this shit. So, um, yeah, it was wild. It was wild, but it's a very small space because it's honeycombed with these little, you know, substations. So our DP Thompson Went had to be able to compose his shots and figure his shots in very, very small spaces. Um, but I think it adds to the mood of the movie, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think the location does add a lot because I didn't know it was shot in an actual radio station, but knowing that, it feels very claustrophobic, and you're there. It feels like you're there with the characters all night long. It feels like you're confined into this radio station with just these 5 or 6 characters. How do you feel that kind of was portrayed on screen? I think we get a great aspect of what the radio station was like, and we get the break room, we get your DJ booth and the record booth. We get all that. It's very well expressed. Was that something that was very well set before by Erik, as far as we need to set up the layout of this radio station so the audience kind of feels like we're there as well.
Well, my DJ booth was one of the largest in the facility, so that gave us a little room to move, but it's still very claustrophobic. And Thompson did a lot of handheld. He did a lot of on the shoulder. So he really pulled, heavy duty there. Um, but the fact that everything was basically set up, pre-production was all about planning those shots. The thing is, you've got to bring the actors into the frame, and in the kitchen and in the bathroom, that's where your cameraman has to be fluid. He's got to be like a dancer, and Thompson has that skill. He's he just knew how to slide right in wherever I was, wherever I moved. He moved with me, in sync with me, and that's a great DP. That's what you've got to have to pull off those small spaces.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to kind of jump into, and I know Sam does too, is a couple questions on your co-stars in this movie. I mean, one of the big themes of this movie that I think is kind of under the surface in a good way is this feels like a Me Too movie without being a Me Too movie, where it's not on the surface, but it's right underneath there that you still get those elements of it, and it has a very unique spin on that too. What was it like reading that for the first time and kind of revealing like your co-star, who Sienna, who plays your replacement? She's gonna be the new DJ. She has a completely different twist on kind of the Me Too movement. What was it like reading that for the first time, and how that relates to your character as well?
Well, one of the things that was great about the writing is that it does put a spin on everything.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't play the scene between me and Sienna as two women in a cat fight. We played it as the competitive nature that all human beings have, that bubbles just below the surface of civilization. Men and women are highly competitive. They just play it out in different ways. And the thing that was great about Amy Marlowe in those scenes is she gets feral. She's gonna have a physical fight with this girl, which is sometimes what men do. Watch a professional baseball game, hockey, any of that stuff. Same thing. As far as the Me Too angle, we didn't want to play it like every Me Too setup that you see in every movie. We decided instead of Bob being an eternal lech from the very beginning, she was in love with him. They had a love affair. This was a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't just there to use her.
Mm-hmm.
She was in love with him. This was a relationship, and you see it, and this is part of Erik's brilliant direction. He needed for me to be younger without being younger. Do you know what I'm saying? We weren't going to change my clothes and my makeup and put lots of stuff on the lens and do all that kind of stuff. It had to be demeanor, delivery. I had to lift my voice a little bit. I had to, and play that innocence and play that schoolgirl crush. And you see it vividly when Bob comes to the door and she looks up and he says, "Call me." And at the same time, they say, "Bob." She's happy. She loves this memory.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful memory for her, how she started out. And I hope it telegraphs. I feel pretty certain it does. A lot of people don't quite know how to handle that because we've already set Bob up as this hideous man, but then you see where he came from, and then you see where,
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it really is a definitive spin on that theme.
Yeah.
It can start out one way and go. They've been in business together now 30 years, so that's a lot of history.
Yeah. And that flashback is one of the reveals that I think surprised me the most, was just the nature of that relationship. And I think both you and the actor who plays Bob, I am sorry, I'm blanking on his name, but
Greg Ballas.
Greg Ballas, that's correct.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you guys just play that so well. And it really does. You said you hoped it telegraphed, and it definitely does. It's a fantastic scene.
I've never gotten to play anything like that.
Yeah.
Usually when you have a younger actress, and we did have the younger version of me, in the delightful and incredible Alice Kremmelberg, who does play younger me and my younger conscience in the Black Room
Mm-hmm.
in that phone conversation.
Yeah.
Alice understood me immediately. She understood the script immediately. She understood the character immediately. She knew exactly what her job was in this movie, and it was effortless for her. And I will tell you, even when she wasn't doing anything, she brought all of us to tears when she's on the party set and the finger snap comes. We were all just blubbing. You know, she has an enormous amount of emotional power. And like I said, as an ensemble cast, for her to be able to give me, I have to listen to that phone conversation. And Erik's direction was, I don't want you to cry. You're not emotional. You're hearing your own words come back at you. You're listening. And that's the emotional dynamic that has to be at work in that scene, you know? I'm telling you, this is a director to watch.
Mm-hmm.
He's a marvel. He's a marvel. And then he got the inspiration in early fall. He said, you know what would be fun, but could also give the movie a boost is if we voluntarily take the marketing campaign in hand. 1091 has all these events and screenings and pop-ups and festivals planned here in the Northeast. Would you want to come out here? And of course, I am broke. I have no money. COVID has wrung me out. And I said yes. And it's one of the best things that I've ever done is it led to all of this stuff. It led to the interview with you guys. It led to
Mm-hmm.
the Reddit thing today. It has led to so much more. And it's just been the most amazing experience. Even with the COVID thing, we've gotten to meet our fans. We've gotten to meet the fans. And there's nothing like it. There's nothing like that.
I think one of the things that really stands out with that is it feels like you guys are really a family in this movie. Like, feels like you have all developed this really great bond, and I feel like you mentioned earlier with Erik's previous movie, Long Lost. That's
Yes.
he worked with Nicholas Tucci then, and
Yes.
you're reuniting with him here, and I believe it is his final movie. But I mean, if I am correct in that, that's his performance in this movie. That's a fantastic performance in this movie. He gives it all. He gives so much in this movie. What was it like working opposite him in those scenes? Because it feels like, to pull a Spinal Tap reference, he's going up to 11 in this entire movie.
Yes. Oh, yes. I had seen Nick in You're Next.
Yep.
Where he plays the character that he plays in You're Next. Then I had seen him in Long Lost. I didn't quite know what to expect. None of us knew he was ill. He never told anyone. It was just like Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
He didn't tell anybody but his very nearest and dearest. But he played someone, to me, I have an autistic son. He's very high functioning, very social, very conversational. He is my biggest fan. He is the biggest horror fan in the world. And Nick had the spectrum. He had the Asperger's element of that absolutely down. And so that had a lot of resonance for me. He's a very method actor. So he's the kind of guy who stays very much in character and spends his time alone in between shots. Now, like I said, we were moving very, very quickly. So there was really not much downtime. But it wasn't, I remember Erik and I had gone to do an interview somewhere. I said, boy, Nick Tucci does not like me. Erik goes, he loves you. He loves you. But he's not the guy who's going to cut up and fool around and have a good time and goof off. None of us really did. But you have scattered conversations. You get to know the people that you're working with. Not so Nick. So the unfortunate thing is I never really got to know him. And then we lost him. So that opportunity is gone forever. But You know, he was a remarkable actor, and
Mhm.
whenever you're working opposite incredible actors like that, what they are giving you is so much bigger than what, or in my mind, is so much bigger than what I am giving them. Because what they are giving me informs every single word I say, gesture, breath, everything, everything. And you know, he was a generous and giving actor, and he gave me some of my best moments in the movie.
Yeah, I think he is just absolutely, and he was incredible in everything he did, and especially here seeing him in this movie, I was mesmerized by his work in this as well as alongside with yours. But Sam, I
Yeah.
don't know if you have any other final questions. I have one more question that I'm still pondering on an answer to, but if you have anything else, I'll hold off on mine.
Um, no, honestly, I was gonna ask about Nick as well.
Mhm.
I don't know how any of you guys stayed straight laced in that third act with him. I mean, he had me cracking up, which is something else because I was also kind of tearing up because of your performance. And then
Mhm.
you've got Nick
Yeah.
Tucci in the background just doing his thing. And oh man, I really, I loved this movie, Caroline. I really did. It was
I so
fantastic.
I am so moved by that. One of the things about Tucci in those scenes at the end, there's a moment in the studio between Bob Nicole and and Tooch Sienna where they exchange a look, and
Hmm.
there it's a very sinister moment. And
Hmm.
then if you're looking at Nick as they're about to bring me down to my coffin, his chin is tilted down and his eyes are tilted up, and he catches the light perfectly. And it is once again a chilling moment that plays off of his Sienna persona in a pretty incredible way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm deeply proud of this film. I don't know if I'll ever have another opportunity like this. They come along few and far between. So
Yeah.
every moment that I get to talk about it, be a part of it, experience it again, it's just heaven for me.
Yeah, I will echo everything Sam just said. I absolutely love this movie. I think this is just a fantastic horror film and a fantastic character study. And the final question I'll kind of leave us off with is I like to throw this out to everyone because for me and Sam, we both love double features. That's kind of one thing we really love is putting
Yes.
Yep.
putting two movies together for just a one night. We sit down for 3 to 4 hours and watch two movies back to back. So the question I will ask you is, what would make a great double feature with 10 minutes to midnight?
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Yes.
There
And
you
I will
go.
tell you, Great Northern Film Festival in Harrogate, UK. They have their film festival at the Crown Palace Hotel, which is one of the better known hotels for ghosts and hauntings and things like that. They had their full festival inside and screened in the ballroom. And
Oh,
God damn
cool.
it, we didn't get to go. But I hope to go this year. And they did feature Chainsaw 2 and 10 Minutes to Midnight back to back.
That's
Wow.
And
so cool.
that felt like a
Mhm.
gift. It just when
Mhm.
I saw they were doing that, I thought, why nobody in the U.S., nobody in L.A. has done that.
That was a question I was asking myself, and sometimes I don't like to go with the obvious answer, but sometimes the only right answer is the obvious answer, and I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is the right answer for a perfect double
Yeah.
feature with 10 minutes to midnight.
Absolutely. And if you want to go with a triple, I would say go with The Fog. So you've
Ooh,
Oh,
got the
yes.
incredible Adrienne
yes.
Barbeau. I mean,
Oh my gosh.
I'm a marathon runner. One of my favorite things to do, and I hope it will happen again, is I love to go to the Egyptian Theater where Cinematic Void and Friday Night Frights here in LA, in conjunction with American Cinematique, have their movie marathons. And I got to see brand new 35 millimeter prints of 1931 Frankenstein, 1935 Dracula, Bride of Frankenstein, Dracula versus Wolfman. I mean, things like that for me, that's heaven. That's being in heaven. Where I
Oh
just
my
literally,
gosh.
I sit in a movie theater from dawn until dusk, until midnight.
That's so awesome. The Universal Monster fan in me just like got
Oh,
chills thinking about that. That's
me
so
too.
cool.
I'm such a Universal Monsters girl. That's how I started my love of uh, of horror or those early films.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I had briefly before we let you go. We just had our kind of our downtown historical theater just reopened during the pandemic,
Ah,
all things. And the first time I walked inside it, I said, "This is church. Like this feels like church."
Yeah.
oh,
That's what that feels like. So I think both Sam and myself totally understand that, and that's how cinema feels sometimes. You walk in, you're like, "This is church. This is where I feel most at home."
Yeah,
nothing like it.
Mm-hmm.
for
Nothing
sure.
like it.
Absolutely. So we'll end this thing here, and once again, 10 minutes to midnight. It is available wherever you can rent anything. Vudu, Amazon, wherever you can find it. Once again, Caroline Williams, thank you
Yeah.
so much for joining us. This was an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure.
Thank you guys so much. It was such a special experience to be with you. And like I said, any chance that I have to talk about this movie is a treasure to me. And I so appreciate the opportunity that you guys have given me.